Fiddling. Lovely.
Right, we are now streaming live on Facebook. Excellent. So let's switch us to gallery view so everyone can see both of us. So hello, everybody. I hope you're managing to see this live. We have a little technical difficulty with StreamYard, which is the software I normally use. Apologies for that. But we have Hugo Metcalfe here with us. Hugo, welcome and thank you for joining us.
No worries. Thank you very much.
And yeah, so let me just close Facebook there. I'm getting a bit of echo. And Hugo is a mental health first aid instructor like myself. That's where we met. And is also a research psychologist and is very passionate about digital mental health engagement. And he also does resilience and leadership training. So perhaps, Hugo, you can give us a bit of an explanation about what all that means.
Yeah, okay. We were just talking earlier about what does it mean, this whole question around what do you do, who are you? I was thinking, I suppose you're right. I do identify, I suppose, predominantly as a research psychologist. What does that mean? I suppose that means that I spend my time researching and writing about things that interest me more than they interest other people. I think that's pretty much it. I trained as a clinical psychologist, and I work predominantly in sort of training and research. So, as Paul said, trained in mental health first aid, so deliver training around that, but also leadership, resilience, and work around young people's mental health and trauma and things like that as well.
You have many strengths and your energy and enthusiasm. I think you're one of these lifelong learners, aren't you?
Very much so, yeah. A bit of almost a desperate hunger for learning, Paul.
And you're to be a psychotherapist like myself.
Yeah, currently training. Adding some more interest. Exploring some other areas that interested me in the past. I now have an opportunity to explore in a bit more detail, which is nice.
Yeah, good stuff. Excellent. So, first question: how are you coping with the lockdown and the whole pandemic shenanigans?
Yeah, we were. Two things just popped to mind when you said that. One was this idea of surviving and thriving, and I was wondering the other day. I wonder if I'm surviving rather than thriving right now. But again, my views on that change a lot. Sometimes I feel like I'm thriving, other times just sitting in the surviving space. It was a bit of a wake up for me in terms of, as you say, lots of interests. And I used to talk to people and tell people this idea of diversifying your joy portfolio. So rather than getting your joy from just one place, have lots of different things that bring you joy. Because if one of those goes away, then potentially, you can find your joy in other places. And I thought I'd done this, you see. So I had this diverse portfolio of training, of research work. I also lead expeditions overseas for young people and adults all over the world. And I thought, well, that's pretty diverse. But obviously the common thread in all of that is interpersonal human one-to-one interaction. So it was a bit unexpected for me. I was like, oh, maybe I wasn't as diverse as I thought. So it was a big change. But I suppose there's been this interesting transition of appreciating what interpersonal connection looks like. I think perhaps for me, I had a rather concrete view that it was being physically in the same room, being present with another person. But the more I've done work on Zoom and talking to yourself now, and also some workshops and things like that, I'm very aware that you can build quite meaningful connections over this space, over this digital space.
Yeah, I can certainly echo that sentiment, Hugo. And I was feeling quite disconnected before this whole pandemic kicked off. And the last month, I've probably got more connected to myself and to the wider world than I have done for a long time. So that's a really positive marker, as we're going to be talking about the passion for digital mental health engagement.
Yeah, very much so. I think many people will have gone through some process of transition. I'm sure for lots of people there's been lots of positive things, others negative, some flitting between those two spaces. But yeah, change. Our construct of social interaction has changed.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, the experience, I think, of most of the people I'm speaking to on the Thrive Hive is of a rocky road with no kind of rhyme or reason to it quite often. It's just a case of today I'm feeling great, the next day they're feeling angry, the next day they're feeling tearful, the next day they're feeling fearful. So it is just a very strange situation, and we're all just trying to navigate it as best as we can, I think.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Okay, so what should we talk about first? Mental health first aid or digital mental health engagement?
So much to talk about, Paul. We could chat MHFA, bit of mental health first aid. Yeah, I mean, how have you been getting on with the mental health first aid?
Well, I've really been enjoying it. You know, I find it really empowering course. I really enjoy the interaction and helping to break down the stigma, raise awareness around mental health issues, try and upskill people, adding to the box of how to start a conversation, how to support people, all that type of stuff. I think it's really powerful, really empowering course, and I always feel good once I've done it.
Yeah,
I love it. So yeah, having to not do that because of what's going on at the moment is it's a bit of a loss, bit of grief around that. But we can do the half-day courses, which I think you upskilled on that as well, didn't you, last year? So we can do that online. So that's a small mercy to be grateful for. But yeah, I think it's a crucial thing for industry or organisations to embrace, and individuals as well. I think it's just great to get the message out there. What about yourself? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I echo those sentiments in terms of starting conversations. You know, this idea about how do we start conversations. Often a lot of that fear is around what do I do, what do I say, and that sort of holds us back because of this fear of this first word that we might utter to engage with another person and what that word should be. This idea of how do we start, and I suppose MHFA offers this demystification of, you know, there's not really a first word. It's just about interaction. It's about care and compassion and thinking about another person. So yeah, very much value that. I value this this sort of accessibility, this approach that mental health first aid is taking of everybody and anybody. Don't have to be a specialist or an expert. It's about people engaging with people. So yeah, I'm sure you've trained lots of diverse groups. I know I've worked with all sorts of different groups and different people. We're training in MFHA, so it's been good in this idea about universality of this conversation. It doesn't have to be confined to specialist groups. It makes me think about one of the reasons that I started doing training generally around mental health. This idea, I think, sometimes that when you work in the NHS, and when you work in psychology, I feel like full stop, you get put in this position that you're some sort of expert and you hold some sort of expert knowledge. And I know some people are more or less comfortable with that expert position. But I think what it creates is this idea that I'm an expert with all the knowledge. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to get an appointment to see me, I'll give you some of that knowledge and then you can take it away. And that never really sat well with me. I sort of sit on the other side of, well, just give the knowledge to everyone all the time for free. Like, shout it from the rooftop, send it out, you know, upskill everyone in the world with it instead, sort of hanging on to it. And I think for me, MHFA is a big part of this, just share out information, you know, have a more of a global conversation rather than that siloed knowledge idea. But I'm conscious that's my perspective of the NHS, lots of different perspectives out there, and they are obviously doing an amazing job at the moment. I know lots of my colleagues in the mental health services are doing loads of work that's really quite groovy. But yeah, this idea about knowledge sharing, for me, mental health first aid really taps into that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and that common humanity that you spoke of, Hugo, it isn't a power dynamic, I think. It isn't a case of I've got the knowledge and you haven't.
Yes.
It's a case of exploring and two humans in a room, which is also very much my experience of psychotherapy. It's two equals in a room rather than a clinician, an expert clinician, and someone who knows nothing.
Great. I love that phrase, Paul. Two humans in a room. What a fantastic construct. Like, I was talking with some people a while ago about, I don't know what you call it, the feng shui of therapy, right? What sort of furniture you should have in the room for therapy, well, how it should be laid out, where the chair should be, where the plant pot should be, this sort of stuff. Yeah, and talking about this idea, from my experience of working in the NHS, there was lots of rigid rules about where the chairs should be. and where the tissue should be and how we should face each other. I remember talking to a supervisor about it and being like, "What? Why are the chairs like this?" She said, "Well, this is just how it's done. This is how it's done. This is how we set up the room." This led to this idea of when did therapy become two people in two office chairs facing each other in a room? Whereas, and I'm sure from your own experience, it can happen outside. It can happen in the sitting room. It can happen on a train. It's two people having a conversation that might potentially be therapeutic, which is fantastic. But this idea, very much teach humans in a room. Love that, Paul. Great phrase. So yeah, I can definitely see how that ties into MHFA. It's just people talking to people.
It is, and it's that sense of there is all that knowledge out there, and for most people, it's just a lack of awareness, which comes with the stigma around mental health issues. And I think what the course does brilliantly is destigmatize, upskill people, and give them the tools, empower them to go out and spread that message far and wide and say, well, it's okay to talk about not being okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the knock-on effect of that, as more people talk to more people, that shift in consciousness, I suppose, is the ultimate dream, isn't it, really?
Yeah. You may, I don't know, when we were being trained, one of our instructors gave us a kind of comparative metaphor around mental health to the situation with physical disability back in the 70s and 80s. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So would you like to recount the story, or shall I recount the story?
After you, sir, and I will embellish upon it.
Okay. So yeah, what the trainer said to us was, where we are now with mental health is pretty much where we were in probably the 70s or 80s around physical disability. So if someone was in a wheelchair back in when I was a lad, they were very disabled because of society. It wasn't the actual physical disability that disabled them, it was because of how society was set up. There weren't ramps to get into shops and cinemas and restaurants and all that type of stuff, offices even. And so much has moved on since then with physical disability that if you're in a wheelchair now, you're not actually that disabled by comparison. And where we are getting to, I feel, with mental ill health is kind of on that journey. We're not quite back in the dark ages of the 70s, but we're not up to where we are with physical disability here. It's just a case of breaking that stigma down, teaching people how to have those conversations.
Yeah. I think that idea about disability, again, they talk about it in MHFA, but you look in the Equalities Act, it's in the wording, any physical or mental impairment. But it feels like for years, once we've read that wording, we missed that second word and didn't include mental ill health as something that might require some different approaches. And I'm thinking about when you're saying about it is not the condition situation that is disabling, it is the environment around it that is disabling. So society is disabling of that individual. And I was thinking about this idea about challenging situations and challenging behaviors and things like that. And this idea that it is not the behavior that is challenged, but is challenging. It is you that is challenged by the behavior. So in the case of mental ill health, it is not the mental ill health condition that is challenging to you. You have become challenged by it. So perhaps we can do something different to create a work environment that is more supportive. I like this idea about, I talk a lot about environmental change being the biggest thing, really. If you want to elicit some sort of change, it's about changing the environment, the culture, the conversation in a workplace, and obviously a bit broader and more generally as well. How we approach these things.
Yeah, and I think we can run that theme through the whole society, right down to primary school, and again, when I was at school, if you were a little bit different, a little bit creative, a bit of a daydreamer maybe, you were whipped. Not quite, that's an exaggeration, but you were punished for not being able to sit still and pay attention. And now we're a lot more aware of conditions like autism, ADHD, just creative people who aren't going to be engaged by an hour of history. They want to do art, they want to do music, they want to daydream, they want to create, they want to be in their own little world, and that's okay. It's about stopping trying to force a round peg into a square hole and making the hole the right shape.
Yeah. It's funny when you say that, I was thinking about the challenging world of teaching, challenging world of the classroom now. Because you're absolutely right, our understanding has changed in the way that young people learn, about the ways that people, the things that are engaging, and this idea about, you know, it is not challenging behavior, it is behavior that challenges you. A lot of that stuff has changed. And I was just reflecting a little bit there, lamenting on the role of the teacher, and just thinking how much broader that role has become, how much more knowledge they're required to hold. And I think about the work that I've done with teachers, which hasn't been a lot. There hasn't been a huge amount of call or opportunity to come in. But I've done a little bit around things like mindfulness and mindfulness in the classroom, mindfulness for young people. But yeah, I just, when you were talking about that, I just had this feeling of like, oh, it's tough.
Yeah, it's a biggie, isn't it? And where was I going to go with that? Don't know, lost my thread. Never mind.
Sorry, I'm off our teachers, Paul.
That's okay. It's okay. So yeah, you know, it is that word that you said. It's culture. So workplace cultures. The more employers and employees can get on board with mental health, talking about mental health, supporting people with mental health, and it is about seeing them just as a human being, and not as a, whoa, that's a bit scary, I don't want to go and speak to them, I have no idea what's going on there, and stigmatizing language like mad or whatever else. So it's a really rich course, I feel, on those 2 days.
Yeah.
It's very rich, very empowering. So I wonder what kind of key messages you took away from it, or anything that's changed for you in your life since you became a trainer.
Yeah, I think for me, the core stuff that's maybe changed in this world of training and my experience of doing the MHFA is mostly around, I suppose, some of these ideas around how to engage people with information, how to engage people with ideas. Because often we can come with a set frame of like, oh, it's a mental health conversation. Oh, and we, you know, put up a bunch of barriers for whatever our relationship is with conversations about mental health. And there's been this interesting journey of how to take useful, helpful, perhaps important, you might say, information and make it accessible. And that doesn't mean pictures and videos and handing out ice cream. It means, how can I deliver it in a way that you can access it, hold it, make sense of it, move it around and use it differently. And that's been a really fascinating journey for me. So obviously on the course, we do our presentations to the group, our own sort of style of how we've made sense of information from the MHFA book, but also maybe our own little piece of information. And that was really helpful, A, to see other people's styles, the way that they are choosing to deliver information and what sat with me and what was different for me. But that journey of how do you, we talk a lot about sharing the information. So the next step is, how do you do that in a way that is meaningful and accessible? So for that's been my biggest takeaway about that sort of packaging of information, sharing of information.
Yeah, it's about engaging the audience, isn't it? It's a powerful message in itself. The way you deliver it is crucial. And I think what's quite good about 2-day course is that there's a lot of variety. It isn't just a person at the front of the room talking. There's activities, there's videos, there's case studies, creative as well. So it's quite a varied course, I feel.
Yeah, you get an opportunity to sample different learning styles almost, and find the one that fits with you, that sits with you, to take that information across. What about yourself? What, if you had to say the biggest key takeaway, what is stuck in your head after that? There's that week-long training we had.
Yeah, for me, it's rather than being a specific part of the content, it's just the empowerment. You know, I'm really passionate about mental health, about talking about mental health, and you know, that's the psychotherapeutic journey as well. I'm just breaking down the stigma and trying to equip people with the skills to go out there and do the same. And at the end of every course I deliver, I feel, you know, people write down what they're going to do when they go back to their normal lives, the workplace or whatever it is. And the stuff they write is so inspiring. I'm going to go and change my workplace culture, or I'm going to deal with my friends and family. It's that's the moment for me. It's like that golden egg that I used to get when I was a teacher, of just seeing somebody blossom and being able to take away the skills that they've been given and spread it far and wide, and be passionate about it themselves. So yeah, the passion, in a word.
It's possibility, the seeds of possibility, both in your sort of school analogy, but also in this workplace analogy. The seeds of possibility. What do I intend to do, and what might that then lead to? It's quite interesting.
Yeah, really empowering. So I know we're probably only got 15 minutes of your time left. So shall we move on to talk about digital mental health engagement?
Yeah, Paul, we've been waffling on. What is happening?
Passion. Oh.
Okay, I'm precariously balancing phones. Again, as we say, Paul, it's all technical stuff here. It's all technical stuff. So yes, we should probably talk a little bit about digital mental health engagement. Should probably start by talking about what that means. So I suppose it means a few things for me, from my perspective. So I'm very fortunate to speak at a couple of conferences around young people's mental health and digital mental health engagement. So in that sort of space is where I began that sort of journey or interest around social media, mental health, forums, and how these things work, and how young people interact with mental health related content online, particularly in these sort of slightly more concerning spaces on the internet, maybe, or these spaces that cause a lot of public concern. So Instagram and some of the certain types of forums and things like that. So I started in that space and was exploring what it all means. I feel like the media conversation was always quite clear. It's bad. It needs to stop. We need to root it out. So I started there, exploring that, talking about some of the research around that area. And in a nutshell, I suppose, when it comes to that space, the social media mental health space, it ended up, as many things do in psychology, sort of, they call it the Goldilocks hypothesis, the digital Goldilocks hypothesis. Too much time on social media, it turns out to be not great for your mental health and well-being. But no time on social media turns out to be just as bad for your mental health and well-being. That there is this space in the middle because of this social connection that is happening, particularly in young people. Social media is the new social. So we can poo-poo as much as we like. While I was out in the park, I used to play with my friends down the woods. This is the new playing with your friends in the park. This is what it looks like. So it is just as socially valuable. So it was exploring that. And from there led on to just a general interest and research, and talking about how do we use this platform, this media, this digital platform, to engage in our mental health in terms of supporting ourselves, but also the support we might provide to other people. How do you do it? It's so broad. There's so much out there. Does it work? Is it the same as face-to-face? Different, better, worse? So yeah, I suppose what that looks like now is probably a bit different because of this COVID situation. I imagine lots of us are spending a lot of time online, be it researching, catching up, be it social media, be it Zoom calls, be it fantastic interviews with Paul. We're going to be spending a lot more time online, so it's going to have changed. I know we spoke at the start earlier on about some of that, the psychotherapy work that is now happening online. So whether we wanted it to or not, it has become a therapeutic space, the internet. And it has become a space that is very much intertwined with our mental health of late. I mean, anyone who's watching, and yourself, how many times recently have you gone online, read an article around COVID or the COVID-related situations, and had an emotional response, be it negative or positive? So it's doing something to your mental health. You're having this relationship. So yeah, that's been my curiosities and my explorations of late in this space. And what it looks like next.
So we were talking earlier today, and before the whole pandemic struck, I suppose it in a way it's done digital mental health engagement a favour, because previously we were kind of coming at it from supporting people who couldn't get to face-to-face interventions, being disabled or anxious of that kind of one-on-one meeting face-to-face, or because they live somewhere very remote. So now, like you say, we're kind of been forced into this situation, which in a way is great for this passion of yours to develop it and research it and see how
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. So, but prior to this, I was working with some colleagues on the provision of virtual reality therapy, so VR therapy, for those reasons, for people who were maybe struggling to leave their homes through disability or mental ill health or simple location. If you're based out in Ireland and nowhere, it's hard to get in and see a therapist. So we were looking at this provision of this service, and it was sort of a pipe dream of, oh, will people be interested in it? Will it work? And now we find ourselves forced into a paradigm shift where all face-to-face therapy has had to go online or be postponed. And I imagine for most, hopefully, have been able to continue that online, which is great. So we've all had to adapt, which I suppose from my perspective is actually quite a positive, because now these things that we were talking about and umming and ahhing about, we've had to do. So we're rushing into production of fantastic stuff. I was reading an NHS report from 2018. It was talking about teletherapy. I think they were using some old school terms, but teletherapy, but the idea of digital therapy, either via text or via video conferencing. And they were like, yes, yeah, 5 to 7 years time frame or something in this report. And that was 2 years ago. Here we are doing it right now. It has happened, which is great, I see only positives in terms of therapeutic provision online as a result of this, because so many therapists have had to upskill, so many services have had to be created to manage this need, that they will continue regardless afterwards, which is great for me. I feel like so many more people could potentially access the resource that is therapeutic provision online, and therapeutic provision full stop. We talked earlier about spreading the word, spreading the message. This will be a fantastic tool to spread that message. You can access in your time, in your space, in your comfort, this thing that might be helpful, which is just great. And I was thinking yesterday, again, working in the NHS, somebody would be referred to a service, and we'd speak together as a team, and we'd discuss their needs and what might be suitable for them. And you might come up with a particular type of therapeutic intervention that none of us was trained in. So they couldn't get that intervention because this is what's available in their area. So they would have something else. But with this, geographic location doesn't matter. You can reach whoever might be best to work with, wherever they are, wherever you are. This open access approach to intervention and support, I think, is just going to be amazing. I know I've spoken with you, I've spoken with lots of people in the past about one of the biggest indicators of therapeutic change in a therapeutic relationship is the therapeutic relationship. It's the relationship you have with your therapist, regardless of modality or what type of therapy you're doing. That relationship is a key indicator of change. And it's so hard to find yourself a therapist, depending on where you live, depending on who you know, depending on what you have access to. Whereas now, it's potentially access to everyone, which would just be fantastic. Picture the amazing, perfectly aligned connections that are going to happen in this therapeutic space, and this fantastic support people are going to get. I do generally feel very joyful about what might happen next in this space for it. In the meantime, for those, I suppose, who are struggling with this space or finding their mental health negatively impact by some of the engagement they're doing digitally, be it social media, be it just the news, I suppose I suggest that there are some fabulous things out there for free as well, outside of the therapeutic space. Now, they're not alternatives to, I suppose they're just potential additions or other avenues, maybe you could think of them as. Some of the apps out there are fantastic now. There's some really great evidence-based apps. If you take a look around, the NHS has a database that they put sort of relevant apps on there that are usually free to use. But yeah, I think if you are someone who is struggling with their mental health, do not be afraid of the digital medium as a place to potentially get support. Now, when times are adapting, but again in the future as it goes forward, this doesn't have to be a fearful thing anymore. There's so much potential here.
Yeah, brilliant. So I'll do a little plug for it. There's a resource on the Thrive Hive and also on my website, pathlight.org.uk.
Yeah.
loads of apps, websites, re-counselling, stuff like that. So if you are looking for some support, that's a good place to start, I would humbly suggest. Yeah, it is this case of a shock happening to not just our society, but the whole world. And out of that shock, the provision has risen to meet the need. And personally, I think that's a really nice metaphor for the kind of therapeutic transformation, and just generally in life with mental health and personal development. Sometimes it's a big shock, whether it's loss of a job, the loss of a loved one, some serious mental health issue. And from that can come sprouts of new growth and enlightenment and wonderful, growthful things, different avenues.
It feels like we're talking about this idea almost around of post-traumatic growth, that we're in this phase, or at least it feels like the mental health services, mental health providers are in this phase of post-traumatic growth. That rather than responding with panicking or spreading out, there's been this unification, this growth, this push forwards to do something to meet a need. Which I think is really, really quite great.
And on a personal level as well, I totally acknowledge that a lot of people are really struggling at the moment with anxiety, financial worries, job worries, existential worries, health of themselves and their family. The space I'm mostly in, although it is up and down, I'm mostly in a space of hope, and seeing this as a great opportunity for personal growth, collective growth, consciousness, evolution, and all sorts of wonderful positive things, which some people might not want to hear, but that's the sense I get, that there's a real opportunity here for everybody.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. You mentioned earlier about people might be experiencing that sort of anxiety or low mood or depression. I think that's okay. That's perfectly normal. That's reasonable and expected, I suppose. If you look at some of the past research from past epidemics, the common factor is an increase in anxiety and depression during and following. So I've been speaking with some friends recently who've been feeling a bit low and then feeling very stressed about feeling low. So I suppose I have this feeling of like, it's okay, makes perfect sense, perfectly reasonable. There are lots of other people experiencing similar experiences to you. And as you said earlier, Paul, there's loads of resources out there to go and get that support, start a conversation. Even if you just start a conversation with another human and let them know that maybe you're having a tough time. Often what you find when you let someone know you're having a tough time is they might say, I'm also having a tough time. You can have a conversation, you can connect. So yeah, I suppose that brings us right back full circle to talk about MHFA, about conversations. Yeah. So if you are feeling anxious, you are feeling worried, you're noticing you're having more arguments with your partner, that's all okay. Let's start a conversation about it. Let's talk to someone, talk to anybody, talk to a neighbor, talk to someone on Zoom, go and have a chat with someone and let them know what's going on. And you might know yourself, you haven't noticed, or you might find a connection.
Absolutely, connection. And talking is good. Anything pushed down into the, this is too hard to deal with, okay, that could be a good coping strategy, but it will come back. So yeah, it really helps. And as you nicely brought that back around to the beginning of MHFA, I noticed that we didn't actually say what it is. So do you want to kind of explain what you see the purpose of MHFA as, or shall I do so if I'm putting you on the spot?
Well, you know what, it'd be interesting to hear both of our construct of what MHFA means. So for me, MHFA, Mental Health First Aid England, is a platform for sharing ideas and knowledge on a mission. So this idea that they're pushing through this conversation, there are conversation starters maybe from this platform. And so what they do, obviously they offer training, those I'm sure everybody knows, they offer lots of different types of training, with the mental health first aid training from half a day up to the 2 days. Sharing knowledge and information with other people in order to give everyone this base understanding of what it means, this word mental health. What are we talking about? What are we referring to? And how can I create spaces for conversation? And how can I create spaces to support people? So from my perspective, it is a platform for sharing a message and that message is put out again, as we talked about earlier, in that seeping way. So down to one person, and then out to another through that and onwards. Yeah, that's my sense making of it, of how I hold it anyway. What about yourself?
Yeah, I like it. I like your creative, personal take on that, Hugo. I might go with the party line, which is that it's the mental health equivalent of physical first aid. So training people, just like, you know, in any organisation, there'll be a physical first aider who's the first responder if somebody has cut their finger or raised their knee or is having some kind of other physical health related difficulty. So for mental health, it's the same thing. You know, if someone's experiencing anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, eating disorders, whatever it is, in that workplace environment, and also equally applicable with friends, family, people that you pass in the street, you know what to do. It equips you with what to do as a first responder, as a kind of clinician. It's not, you're not there to diagnose people, but just to be able to support them, be with them, two humans in a room or a forest or wherever you may be, and signpost them to appropriate support. And quite often the support is just that non-judgmental listening. Okay, provide a safe space, come and talk to me, what's going on for you? What do you want me to do? How can I support you through that? And that doesn't mean giving advice, it doesn't mean giving clinical support like that. It is just listening with empathy, directing them to some professional support.
Yeah. I like, you know, you're absolutely right in that idea that it's not necessarily just a workplace thing. So just as, you know, you might do your first aid course because you're interested in first aid and would like to have that skill set. The same thing applies, from my perspective, for mental health first aid. Yes, it's fantastically applicable in the workplace. It's also applicable to everyone. You know, if you're interested in mental health, if you're interested in psychology and behavior, in conversations in this initial space, then yeah, absolutely, it makes sense to give yourself a bit of a basic understanding so that you can provide some support potentially in that situation, that first response, I suppose, situation you talk about. Yeah, applicable to anyone really.
Lovely, thank you. So we're coming towards the end of the time, so I wonder,
yes.
We've not been able to get onto adventure psychology, maybe another day if you'd like to come back, but in the meantime, can't take any questions today, I'm afraid, folks, because we don't have the StreamYard working. But is there anything else, Hugo, that you want to bring? Any kind of final messages or important stuff you want to get across?
Yeah, I suppose a final message maybe. Maybe to come back to ideas around communication and conversation. I noticed this funny thing about human beings, that we feel an emotion and then we hide it away and stick it deep down. And I've never quite understood that. It's not there for no reason. It exists. Let's take it out and have a look at it. Particularly in conversation with others. So we're with another person and we feel an emotion and then we hide it away. I have this view that if we're together and an emotion comes up, then maybe that's a co-created emotion that might belong to both of us. So perhaps it has a right to be popped out and shared and spoken about. But this idea really about conversation, if you are feeling things, let's swap it around and start saying things. So again, if you notice that your feelings about things are changing or shifting around, you're having feelings you're unfamiliar with, new ones, be they anxiety, worry, stress, whatever it is, let's start articulating. Let's use this time that we have to shift that way we communicate and bring some of those emotions as part of our conversation with other people. If anything is going to come out of this, let it be deeper, more meaningful conversation and communication. So I suppose if I've got any agenda to push, it's a communication agenda. Let's get talking. Maybe try it out this evening. Try it out with a loved one, friend, colleague, partner, whoever it is. Share something that you're feeling that maybe you haven't quite articulated before and see what happens.
Beautiful message, Hugo. Thank you for that. Yeah, big advocate of talking about feeling. And if you need a stepping stone to doing that, folks, I'd suggest start writing it down first, journaling. But and expressing our emotions in a safe way is always a good thing, I would suggest. Brilliant. So I trailed this interview yesterday on the Thrive Hive, Hugo, and I said, Hugo's a wonderful character and he uses his body, he moves like he uses his body to talk. So I said it'll be a bit of a competition to see who does the most. I'll be interested in the comments. Feel free to tell us who used their hands and the rest of their body the most. I'm very aware of it today. So thank you, sir, once again for your time and your expertise. Lovely thoughts there, very useful stuff, hopefully, for folks. And where can people find out more about you if they want to get in touch or find out more about your work?
Yeah, by all means. So feel free to have a look online. I run a training organization called In Mind Insight. We are www.inmindinsight.co.uk. We also have a YouTube channel. With this new space, we thought we should probably create some online content. So we're trying out the medium of YouTube. We're on there as In Mind Insight and as the Adventure Psychologist. Take a look. Please do send me a message about anything, really. Come catch up. Say hey, share your thoughts. But genuine pleasure, Paul. Thank you so much for inviting me on, even just for the conversation. It's quite nice to have a chat.
Isn't it just? Yeah, let's do it again. And we'll catch up soon.
Yes, please do.
Thank you very much, Hugo. And I wish you well with your ongoing endeavours and studies.
You too, sir. No worries. Catch you soon.
You soon. Okay. I'm talking for a little while. Are you able to exit, Hugo, or do I have to throw you out?
I figured out how to exit. See you soon, sir.
Take care. He's gone. Goodbye, Hugo. So hopefully you enjoyed that, folks, and got something out of it. I do apologise for the technical issues. 2 nights on the bounce. I might be having to give StreamYard the old elbow. Maybe we'll persist for 1 more day and see if that improves. Anyway, sorry, I can't have any interaction with you guys today. It feels a bit different because I can't see who's watching and I can't see any comments or anything. But I enjoyed that. And what else do I need to tell you about? Ooh, I'm doing a bit of a one-off thing tomorrow morning. I'm going to ask for some help. My eyes are twitching. I'm tired. I need a bit of help. So I'm going to do a bit of a plea for help tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow evening, it's Tuesday tomorrow, so it's Man Tuesday, 6 o'clock. If you're a man, want to talk, want to listen, come along and have a chat. Wednesday, we are doing our support, connection and meditation session, and we have a guest meditation leader, which is Rachel Barker, qualified meditation teacher. A bit of a change from listening to me going on all the time. Noon on Wednesday, do come along for that. Thursday is, do not miss Thursday, 6:30, and if you do miss it, watch it back. Alice Lyons, founder of Dark Coffee. She's going to be talking about her own journey through mental health issues, breakdown, to becoming a badass hippie entrepreneur. Her words, not mine, but I like them. She's had a lot of suicidal ideation, and I'll let her tell you about it on Thursday, but it's going to be a really good one. And then on Friday, we've got Sarah Burton coming in to talk about faith and gratitude, and possibly a bit of Kundalini as well, Kundalini yoga. We'll see. And lots more coming up beyond that. Check out the schedule if you want to know more. In the meantime, I'm going to do a song. Let me see. This is a double header video. It's LOA State again. And part of this video was recorded at one of their gigs that I attended. So I am in one of these videos. 100 points if you spot me. I think I've been it 2 or 3 times, but for a grand total of about 18 milliseconds. So if you spot me, 100 points for you, definitely. So I just need to work out how to do this now because we're on Zoom instead of StreamYard. And what do I need to do? Share screen. And here we are, LOA State, share sound, do that as well. Share that there, and then hopefully.
An evolutionist, am I a socialist, am I a communist? Nah, it's hard to tell these days, the truth is hide behind fake in a maze for days. When really I'm just a consumerist within a capital state that pays my faith held by the sword that waits to come down on me there. When I'm trying to make the most of me there. All these made up names is imagination used to control the way we think, a gateway to a human me there. On our island so remote, nothing left here to provoke. Come and then they go, and if I'm giving you my vote, This is all that I request. Have the cheek to second guess. Dressed in all my gasliness. Hold on with a young bite, daylight into twilight. You move into my groove, a crude lane to choose, move and lay blame on me, display blame on you. Let power corrupt by narrowing your mind. Your conditioning, what keeps you in play by down your mental lesson life. Fall in love with what you feel and hold a vision of, and make it real. Fall in love with what you feel and hold a vision of, and make it real. On our island so remote, nothing left here to provoke. Leaders come and then they go, and if I'm giving you my vote, most domestic happiness, this is all that I request. Have the cheek to second guess. Dressed in all my gasliness. So let it be that we only create great. So let it be. Most domestic happiness, this is all that I request. Have the cheek to second guess. Dressed in all my gasliness. We've only had it been taught this from day one. The enemy is not your imagination. The enemy is not what you dreamt of when you were young. You're an adult now, boy. It's time to grow up. Time to be like everyone. Time to be what society wants. Condition mind, prison cell of life. Only you have the key. Time to leave it all behind. Listen to the words that I say. You are the choices you take, and you are the judgments you make. And we are the world we create. So let it be that we only create great. We are the world we create. So let it be that we only create great. We are the world we create. Whatever the mind can conceive can become. Whatever the mind can conceive can become. Check, check, microphone 1, 2, are we on? I've had enough of the bullshit, son. I'm breaking out of a dull system. To all the kids born without fun, Operation Flatline, removal has begun. We are only one, knowledge to be shared with the victims of a failed state, raised to be playing the victim. Wisdom is the source of eternal power. Education system sour. Listen to the words that I say. You are the choices you take. You are the judgments you make. We are the world we create. So let it be that we only create great. We are the world we create. So let it be that we only create great. We are the world we create. Whatever the mind can conceive can become. Happiness. Whatever the mind can conceive can become. 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 Check, check, microphone 1, 2.
Lovely jubbly. Did you spot me? Oh, no. Sorry, folks. Stop that there. And there we go. Right, smashing. So hope you enjoyed all of that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. Hopefully, see you tomorrow morning or at Man Tuesday tomorrow. And if not, come along on Wednesday for a nice connection and support and meditation session. Thank you for being there. Goodbye. How do I stop this now? End meeting. I think that's what I have to do. End meeting.